Well, hey everybody, and welcome to this midweek review with Mr. John. As you can see, it's beautiful outside, so I decided to come outside and do my lesson. If you were with us last week, we were talking about Moses and being stuck. And if you remember, Moses, when he met up with God at the burning bush, God gave him the commission, the task, the job to go and free the Israelites from their bondage in Egypt. And Moses was stricken right away with this immediate doubt and fear. But with reassurance, God was able to get Moses to go and do what God wanted him to do, to let his people go, to get Moses to even go to Egypt to talk to Pharaoh. Well, I promised you guys I would talk about another stuck, and that is Pharaoh. So when Moses gets to Egypt, he goes to Pharaoh, tells Pharaoh, hey, I've been told by God that you're supposed to let my people go, let God's people go. And Pharaoh immediately comes back at this with a new kind of stuck we're going to look at. This stuck was more in stubbornness and more in hard-heartedness. When Moses kind of got reassured by God, he was willing to listen. He was willing to open his heart to do what God asked him to do. Pharaoh immediately goes into this phase of stubbornness. He goes into this phase of, you can't tell me what to do. My God is greater than your God, and my God will defend us. And so every time Moses was told by God what the next plague would be, he would take it to Pharaoh. Pharaoh would sit there and he would say, no, I'm not letting your people go. And then the plague would hit. Like, he turned water into blood. There was the plague of frogs. There was a plague of flies, locusts, boils on skin, all these different plagues. And each time Pharaoh would go to his wise men, his magicians, or whatever they called them back then, and they would sit there and give reasons to how this could happen. I'm sure Pharaoh, when there's a whole mass of frogs everywhere, imagine sitting down eating breakfast and there are frogs everywhere, jumping out of your Lucky Charms, on your spoon, just crazy. And then the flies, oh, that would be so gross, flies everywhere. How many of you have ever walked out into a little patch of gnats and they just get into your face? Imagine gnats everywhere, just everywhere on you, in your ear, in your nose. Oh, just so gross. But that's what these plagues were doing. And I'm sure Pharaoh was like, whoa, dude, yeah, I'll let you. But as soon as he would sit there and think about it, that stubbornness would take over. His heart would harden, and again it was, I am not letting your people go. Well, we know the story. 9 plagues happen. Each time the Pharaoh's heart hardens, and he refuses to let Moses' people go. Then Moses goes to God and says, hey, he's not letting us go. So God says, I've got one last plague. This is the plague of all plagues. This is going to be called the Passover, or some have called it the angel of death, will come down and just go through the whole town of Egypt, where the Israelites are, and everything. And the only thing that can save you, your firstborn sons, from being consumed or killed by this plague is to take the blood of an unblemished lamb, a perfect lamb, and put it on the doorposts and the lintels of your house. And then the angel of death will pass you by. Well, when the plague comes, all of Egypt, their firstborn sons, all die because they didn't believe it. They just weren't going to follow this, and their sons died. Well, this gave... You would think that this gave Pharaoh a new heart, that this would soften his heart. Well, we kind of see that it did in a way. He lets the Israelites go. He lets God's people go, and they go about on their way, and they start traveling. But it didn't take long. His stubbornness comes back. His stuck in stubbornness and just hard-heartedness comes back, and he says, well, I need to get him back. I need him here. I'm going to they're going to go back into slavery. I'm going to kill him. He's going to do all these things, and he sends his army after Moses and the Israelites. And we know the story that they catch up to him at the Red Sea. God sends down pillar of fire to block the chariots from coming close to the Israelites. Moses parts the Red Sea. They get across on dry land, mind you, and they get across the Red Sea. And then when they get across, God lifts the pillar of fire. The chariots take off. They get out in the middle of the Red Sea, and they're consumed. We can get caught in all kinds of stubbornness and being stuck in things. You know, we as children or as adults, we may have something that we don't want to share. We get stubborn in it's ours, it's mine, I don't want to share it. You know, have you ever seen a little kid with a toy that is absolutely theirs, and all you hear is mine, 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 mine? They won't want to share it with anybody. Guys, Pharaoh did not want to share that God was the one true God. Moses' God was the one true God. He truly believed. And even after seeing all the things that God did by sending each and every plague, it didn't soften Pharaoh's heart. He was stuck in this thing of stubbornness. Now we saw how Moses was able to get out of his stuck. Remember, we talked about him being stuck? Kind of like his feet would be stuck in mud. He had the reassurance of God. God was like putting out his hand and pulling him out of the mud. Maybe his boots got stuck in the mud and were there, but Moses was free from that. Pharaoh was very different. He was stuck more like having his head stuck in sand. He wasn't listening, he wasn't paying attention, he just was in his own world. It was all about him, and he was not going to hear it. Guys, we can get stuck like that in things. We need to look for God. We need to look for God's reassurance. So we'll continue our story next week as the Israelites are traveling through the wilderness. Next is coming the verse. Hey, go enjoy the outdoors. It's beautiful outside. It's been 95 for like months, and now it's like 80 degrees and beautiful. So enjoy this weather that God's given us, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one. Bye. Our memory verse is, "My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth." Psalms 121:2.